Okay, hello, welcome to another How to Play StarCraft 2 unit guide. In this guide, we'll be going through every single unit and later building in the game, going over their strengths, their weaknesses, their abilities, some practical uses. And in this video, we will be going over the High Templar. So there he is. So a bit of development lore. This was actually one of the 5 units that originate from StarCraft 1, the other 5 being the Zealot, which we've already covered, the High Templar, the Archon, which you'll see a little bit here, but will have its own dedicated video, the Observer, and the Carrier. So these, yeah, these are the guys who actually came over from StarCraft 1. Fun fact, in StarCraft 1, the High Templar was actually more powerful, but due to certain game mechanics, they had to nerf it. We'll, we'll get to that in the ability section. Now, for a little bit about the in-game lore. Now here's the thing about all Protoss. All Protoss have some baseline psionic abilities, and they're used in different ways. For example, if we zoom in, a Zealot's Psi Blades are actually a Zealot using their psionic abilities to create this powerful raging blade of light. Now the High Templars have foregone physical combat and instead have chosen to focus their psionic abilities in order to do other arguably more powerful things. Also in the lore hierarchy, the High Templar greatly outranks the mere Zealot. Also as a side note, if you're familiar with Heroes of the Storm, this is the unit that Tassadar is based off. Artanis is a bit closer to the Zealot. Now, okay, so to talk about where they are produced in game. So they're produced from a warp gate. However, you do need a few buildings before that. So let's go to the probe and let's start the tech tree process. We'll just leave these guys here. So the first thing you have to do, of course, you have to build a pylon. Then you have to build a gateway. Again, normally you wouldn't be able to automatically produce them. But after the gateway, you need to build a cybernetics core. Then you need to build the Twilight Council. Then, and only after you get all of these buildings, then you get the final building, the Templar Archives. And only after this is done, you can build your High Templar. So you need to get technically 5 buildings. The order is, or rather, the order for the buildings will be E, G, Y, C, T. E, E, G, Y, C, T. Of course, C and T are found under the Advanced Structures tab. C, T. Okay, from there you can either call in Warp in High Templars, they'll come out of your gateway, or more realistically,
Research complete.
by this time you should have Warp Gate, and from there you can teleport them in at any power field. We're gonna warp in one here in a second. Yep. Okay. And that is where you get them from. Now let's talk about their upgrades. Now they get upgrades from 2 places, which is the Forge, as previously mentioned, as well as the Templar Archives itself. Let's build a Forge. Okay, let's cheat and build a. Like you notice that, let's cheat and build a Templar Archives directly. Normally you would need all those other buildings. So if you have a High Templar and you upgrade their attack and their armor and their shields,
Upgrade
they
complete.
benefit from these upgrades.
Upgrade
The other upgrade
complete.
you need to get from them, and this is almost a necessity, is you need to research Psionic Storm from the Templar Archives. This will unlock their additional ability, which we'll get to in a second.
Research complete.
Okay, but let's go back a second. Let's switch off those upgrades. Okay, let's just talk purely about its abilities. Now, The first ability that the High Templar will have is an ability called feedback. Let's see. Abilities. Now the first one is something called feedback. This is similar to if you play Warcraft 3 to mana burn. Hold on. Yep, this is correct. Similar to mana burn, although not to be confused with the new one, the new mana burn in Hearthstone, the new Demon Hunter class. Okay, and what this does is that, in fact, let's talk about it for a second. So what this does is that it will drain a target of all its energy or mana and deal 0.5 damage per energy. So what this means is that it hurts the enemy pretty bad. So to go to a good example, in fact, let's get rid of the Terrans. Let's focus on just Protoss. Okay, so you see this Oracle, it's full of energy. If it flies too close to them, okay, normally, you know, the Oracle will have abilities like Stasis Trap, Revelation. Huh, interesting. Okay, however, if a Templar feedbacks a unit, you'll notice that this unit takes damage as well as will not be able to cast its spells. Huh, interesting. You also do it to other High Templars and it will kill it immediately because of how much energy these guys have. This can be used for any unit with energy, so going back to a wide example, for the Zerg, it's the Viper, the Queen, the Infestor. Yep, so now the Banshee won't be able to cloak, the Queen won't be able to attack. Of course, the downside to all of this is that if there's a unit without energy, let's say a Zealot, oops, let's say a Zealot, you can't feedback it. You must target a unit with energy, and the Zealot, the Marine, a whole bunch of them do not have energy. This is one of the only two ways that you can actually drain a unit of energy, the other being the Ghost EMP, which we will get to in another video. Of course, as mentioned, a unit without energy, you can't target it. Now, the next ability, which we cover very quickly, is called Archon Warp. There it is. Let's clear the field. So what Archon Warp is, if you go here, you look at the C button, it sacrifices 2 Templar to create what is called an Archon. So it merges them. See, so those 4 Templar are now 2 Archons. I'll just wait for them to morph. Now, the Archons themselves, they're a unit, they will require their own video. But this is just an ability, so that's the thing. So these units, the Archons, they don't just bring into existence. You can't make them out of a building. You have to merge them from, well, either your High Templars or your Dark Templars. But again, we'll save that for another video. It's still an ability. Now the last ability is the important one. The last ability that you have to research from the Templar archives as mentioned is Psionic Storm. This is one of the most powerful, important, and infamous spells in the entire game. As Protoss, you need this spell against Terran. Let's get 10 Marines. Against Terran, against Zerg. You almost need this spell. Now let's demonstrate the ability. Let's say you have 10 Marines here and you have 4 High Templars. If you just ask them to attack, this is what's going to happen. It's not very impressive. It's not meant to be impressive. However, if I cast Storm, yep. So what Storm does is that it causes, or when I cast it, it will cause an area of effect damage that does a significant amount of, well, damage over a period of time. And the thing is that because it casts so fast, it's very, very hard to dodge. Another important thing, so two other important things about Psionic Storm, which is that it has friendly fire. Yeah, they're all gonna die. And, more importantly, Psionic Storm can target air units. So let's say you have, what, 5 Mutalisk? And you have to cast Psionic Storm on them. If they stay in the storm, they're gonna take pretty bad damage. Of course, you can, as you saw in this example, you can move out of the storm, but that comes down to your micro. And as a final example, in this section regarding Psionic Storm, again, we'll get to a few more examples in the strengths and weaknesses section. Let's say we have 20 Zerglings. We attack. Dead. Just 2 storms. Just 2 storms was all it took, and all those Zerglings are just dead. Now the other thing to note is that Storm does not stack, so casting it a bunch of times and casting it once makes no difference. However, casting it in like 2 different places, yeah, these are 2 different zones of damage. And as Protoss, again, if you're going into the mid game against Terran or Zerg, you do need some form of splash damage. You either need this or you need the Colossus, whom we will get to in another video. Do subscribe to and press the bell icon to get notifications on that. Now let's talk about their strengths and weaknesses. Hint, a lot of it revolves around Storm. Oops. Okay. Now the first strength, as mentioned, is the insane splash damage. Now let's take another scenario. Let's say we have, like, this is a real in-game scenario. Let's say we have 2 Immortals, we have 2 High Templar, we have 5 Zealots, and we have, let's say, 5 Stalkers. And on the other side, we have the exact same thing. Again, the upgrades are both the same. The units are both the same. In a straight up engagement, you would expect it to be about the same. Oh wait, no, there are too many High Templars. In a straight up engagement, you'd expect it to be about the same. But if one side chooses to micro and actually cast the storms, I think results speak for themselves. Now, Storm isn't that useful, or isn't used as commonly in PvP. Archons are more common. Okay, but let's take another scenario. Let's go to the Zerg. Say 10 roaches, 10 Hydralisks. You can see it's almost the equivalent amount. If we just attack, again, both sides 0/0 upgrades, and let's say Protoss doesn't micro. This is kind of the result. Protoss gets obliterated. Convincingly. We don't have to rerun that test. However, if we micro, as I said, results speak for themselves. And as one final test as Terran, let's say we have 10 Marines, 5 Marauders, 2 tanks, 2 medevacs. Fill it up accordingly. No, that's too many. Yeah, so again, almost equivalent amount, slightly more for the Protoss. In fact, let's add back that Marine. If we just attack, again, this is a kind of a real engagement you would get in mid-game PvZ, PvT. Okay, we look at it. Again, without the storms, this is what it looks like. However, if you actually use your High Templar, feed back the medevacs, Protoss wins extremely convincingly. And with this army, you can go and smash the base. Okay, so that's really the key advantage. Now, another advantage or strength is honestly deterrence value. Again, I I play all three races, but the race I played the most is Terran. If I see a Terran army, and if I just see that the High Templar here, I completely change my playstyle. Because again, if we remove the High Templar from that army as a negative example, and fine, let's add in 3 more Stalkers to fill the gap, and we attack. Now my tanks don't even need to siege. Yep, you'll see that the Terran army, okay, just barely has enough to push through. Of course, we're not including warpins and reinforcements. Again, this is with 3 additional Stalkers but no High Templar. But but going back to the actual example, if I see the enemy has gotten, there's 1 more Stalker. If I see the enemy has gotten High Templar, I completely change my strategy. I will try to go where it's not, especially in this death ball. Because if I engage this army, I'm dead. It's over. In professional games, tens of thousands of dollars per game have been lost because of diving in at the wrong moment. I'll be forced to do more scouting, I'll be less decisive with my dives, and that's good if you're Protoss, because anything that gets the enemy to do more things is good for you. Now the last strength, it's its ability to turn into Archons, which means in a more practical sense that even after the fight is done, you can still turn them into Archons and join the front line. So let's say you have 3 Templar and then the enemy has 1 Zealot. Now I'll show you what happens if we don't do this in the weaknesses example, but let's say they attack. Oh, Zealot's coming. Another actual scenario you could use is that, let's say for example, if the High Templar are in danger from, let's say, a pack of Zerglings. In fact, let's get 1 more High Templar. Let's say they're in danger from a pack of Zerglings, you can turn them into Archons, and unlike a lot of other fragile units like the Sentry, there is some hope that you'll be able to survive. Of course, if Zerg brings overwhelming numbers, or if you're slow to react, then too bad for you. In a more practical scenario, again, after battle is done, after the energy has been casted, you can still turn them into a useful fighting unit that can join the army and push forward to victory. So these are some of their strengths, but the big one really is the splash damage provided by Storm. Feedback's useful too, but it's really about Storm. Okay, so let's talk about those weaknesses. I think something you would have noticed by now is that this is a high micro unit, and you have to control them. You have to cast those storms in order to win. Like coming back to this example with 5 Zealots and 5 Stalkers, and the same thing on the other side. Like, remember this example, these guys didn't cast Storm, maybe they weren't paying attention. As a result, they just lost. Furthermore, they need to be monitored and babysat, almost like fragile psionic snowflakes. And it's more than just that. Realistically, in-game, you will not have the initial energy starting off. So if you, again, coming back to this example, if you only just warp in the High Templars, they will not have energy for Storm. And if these Marines attack them before that happens, well, they're dead. Yep. Because the High Templars will only start at 50 energy, not the 75 you need for Storm. So you need them to literally float around and, well, shake leg before they could do anything. Before they could do what they really need to do, unless you plan to turn them directly into Archons. So it requires a lot of micro, a lot of finesse.
My charge. We shall stand against
Energy
the
start to
darkness.
fall on. Even if they're at full energy, let's say like you mess up the storms or you fire behind the enemy or you miss all your shots, the storms need to land. In fact, it's not uncommon back in the day for High Templars to be left unaccompanied and then groups of units to just like sneak up on them. Okay, you cast a storm with some micro, be able to take them out. You know, and back in the day there was a meme that in the death ball the High Templar would just float into the enemy and just die. It was bad. Okay, so again, you really need to micro these units. You really need to, you know, babysit and take care of them. Now, another weakness they have that you might have noticed is that it's a very high gas unit. A single High Templar is going to cost 50 minerals but 150 gas. You need a lot of gas to summon these guys. 1,000 gas will only get you 6 High Templars. There, 6. 900. And you won't even have research for Storm, because Storm by itself costs 200 gas. So 1,000 gas will only get you 6 High Templars. That's it. And realistically, you'll probably need 6 mining geysers in order to properly support Psionic Storm and High Templar production. Now the final weakness is that they have, as you might have noticed, incredibly low shields. Low shields, low health. It is laughably low. Okay, let's just get one to demonstrate. Let's have a Zealot and a Probe. The Probe's here for a reason. It has 40 shields and 40 health. That's it. A Zealot, for comparison, has 50 and 100. A Zealot has double the amount of health of a High Templar. The only thing that is less than I checked is a Probe. And to add on to that, the High Templar's attack does 4 damage, the Probe does 5. A Probe does more damage to a High Templar than a High Templar does to a Probe. And if we get the Zealot, a Zealot on the other hand does 8 damage times 2, 16. To show you, to prove this example if the Marines were not enough. This will happen. As a result, this makes the High Templar very, very vulnerable to things like splash damage, like a siege tank will just obliterate them. And for Zerg, again, I apologize for anyone who's played this game a significant amount. This will hurt you if you're a Protoss player. All it took was 3 Banelings, which cost significantly less to take out these guys. Significantly less. Now, of course, if you attacked and you actually casted Psionic Storm. But again, if you did it, this is what's gonna happen. And Zerg's gonna have plenty of resources left over. Okay, so in conclusion, you know, these High Templars, they are, you know, these High Templars, they are high use, expensive units that might have utility in the right hands. You know, when the die is cast and all hope seems lost, These mighty High Templars can turn the tide of battle and brush away the enemy hordes, giving the Protoss a fighting chance. If need be, they can be sacrificed to make Archons
We seek
to
enlightenment.
overwhelm the enemy.
Our minds are as
A
one.
sacrifice sure to be missed by all. Okay, so that concludes this guide. If you like it, please do like and subscribe. I'll be making 2 or 3 of such
We
videos
are the
every
light of the power.
week, plus other SC2 content such as as of right now, the Singapore SC2 Online number 3, which is a tournament I organized, casted, and ran. If you have any feedback, do comment below, and we will see you next time.
We are focused.
Bye bye.